A 52-year-old man from Charlestown is stopped for running a red light and tells Judge Frank Caprio something almost impossible to believe, that Ben Affleck once played him in a major Hollywood film about a bank robbery. As he begins sharing specific details that seem too precise to make up, Judge Caprio realizes he's dealing with one of the most unusual cases of his career. This is the story of Robert Williams, a case that shows what happens when Hollywood fiction collides with real-life consequences. In Judge Caprio's courtroom, share where you're watching from, because this story about truth being stranger than fiction might just change how you think about movies versus reality. You're about to see Judge Caprio handle one of the most bizarre claims he's ever encountered in 4 decades on the bench. Monday morning, 10:45 a.m., Providence Municipal Court. Judge Frank Caprio reviews his docket, filled with standard weekend traffic violations. But one case stands out, not for its seriousness, but for a curious note attached to it. Defendant claims Hollywood connection, requests opportunity to explain. The citation itself is simple. Robert Williams, 52, charged with running a red light at the intersection of Federal Hill and Atwells Avenue. Officer Kelly's report reads like any other, except for one line. Defendant made unusual statements about a movie career during traffic stop. He remained polite yet firm. Robert's letter stood out as one of the most unusual Judge Caprio had encountered in nearly 5 decades. Your Honor, it began, I realize this might sound unbelievable, but Ben Affleck played me in The Town. That film was inspired by my crew's jobs in Charlestown. I'm not asking for special treatment. I just think people deserve to know the real story behind it. Judge Caprio had heard every kind of excuse imaginable. But claims about Hollywood basing movies on defendants' lives? That was a first. The courtroom was moderately full, around 15 people waiting for their Monday morning hearings. A young woman flipped through her speeding ticket. An elderly couple quietly debated over a parking meter fine, and a few business owners scrolled their phones, eager to settle their cases and head back to work. Then Robert Williams entered. His walk carried the quiet confidence of someone who had faced far harsher settings than a municipal courtroom. Dressed neatly in a button-down and khakis, he looked composed, but the cautious way his eyes swept, the room hinted at a complicated past. Robert had served 15 years in federal prison for a string of armed bank robberies around Boston, the very crimes that inspired the 2010 Ben Affleck film The Town, released 8 years ago. He'd since been working in construction, staying clean and rebuilding his life in Providence, hoping Hollywood's shadow would finally stop following him. But Judge Frank Caprio's courtroom has always been a place where every person's full story matters, no matter how unusual it may be. Good morning. Mr. Williams, Judge Caprio begins, his tone calm but inquisitive. I see you're here for a red light violation, but your letter mentioned something about a movie. Please explain. Robert steps forward with the composure of someone who has told this story before and knows how strange it sounds. Your Honor, he begins, I know this might sound unbelievable, but I'm the real person Ben Affleck's character in The Town was based on. My crew robbed banks in Charlestown for years before we were caught. Hollywood made a fortune off our story while we sat in federal prison. The courtroom falls silent, the weight of his claim hanging in the air. I'm not here to fight the ticket, Robert continues. I probably did run the light, but when I got pulled over, people recognized me from the news stories tied to the movie, and I figured it was time to be upfront about who I really am. Judge Caprio leans forward, clearly intrigued. Mr. Williams, that's quite a statement, he says evenly. Do you have any proof of this connection? Robert opens a folder, carefully laying out newspaper clippings, court records, and what seem to be letters from film studios. I've got federal sentencing documents that match the movie's timeline, he explains. Here are articles from the Boston Globe about our arrests, and these letters from Hollywood lawyers saying I have no legal rights to my own life story. Judge Caprio reviews the papers carefully, his initial skepticism giving way to visible surprise. Mr. Williams, these documents seem legitimate. Can you explain your connection to this film? Robert's tone steadies, carrying the weight of years of frustration. Your Honor, everything shown in that movie, the bank heists, the armored truck robbery, even the relationship with the bank manager was real. Ben Affleck and his team took details from police files, court records, and media coverage of my crew and turned them into a $150 million movie. Officer Kelly, who issued the citation, sits in the gallery, equally stunned by how this traffic case has evolved. The hardest part is they portrayed us as sympathetic figures when, in truth, we committed serious crimes that harmed real people. I've been trying to rebuild my life, but that film keeps dragging me back into the past. The courtroom feels heavier now, the realization settling in that Robert is not just making claims. He's the man behind a famous Hollywood story, struggling to start anew. Judge Frank Caprio examines the documents again, his demeanor shifting from curiosity to gravity. It's clear this isn't fiction but verifiable fact. Mr. Williams, these federal court records confirm you were convicted for armed robberies involving banks and armored cars in the Charlestown area. The dates match the period when those events occurred in town. Robert nods, relieved that someone in authority is finally paying attention to the facts. That's correct, Your Honor. I led a crew that pulled several jobs across Boston between 2004 and 2007. We got caught, and I served 15 years in federal prison. While I was incarcerated, Hollywood turned our crimes into a movie. The unusual situation captures the gallery's attention. Many lean forward, intrigued by this blend of real crime, justice, and popular culture. Your Honor, I'm not proud of what I did, Robert continues. We robbed banks, put people at risk, and frightened innocent workers just doing their jobs. I earned my time in prison and served every day of it. Judge Caprio leans back, taking in the weight of what he's hearing. The real-life figure behind a well-known Hollywood film, now standing before him for a minor traffic violation. Mr. Williams, the judge asks, how did you find out your story had been turned into a movie? Robert's tone shifts, carrying the frustration of someone stripped of control over his own story. I was in federal prison when other inmates told me about a movie featuring Charlestown bank robbers. At first I thought it was just loosely based on the area, but then they started describing scenes with details only someone who'd seen our case files could know. The exact banks we hit, our methods, even personal relationships within the crew. They changed the names and a few details, but anyone familiar with our case could tell it was about us. Judge Caprio listens closely, clearly intrigued by the legal and ethical issues surrounding Robert's story. Mr. Williams, did you or anyone involved receive any form of payment for the use of your story? Robert's answer reveals the bitter irony of his situation. No, Your Honor. Hollywood lawyers told us that because our crimes were public record, they had the right to use the facts without our consent or compensation. In their words, once we broke the law, we gave up any ownership of our own story. And how has that impacted your life since being released? It's made everything harder. I'm trying to stay clean, work construction, and avoid trouble, but people recognize me from the movie and old news stories. Some treat me like a celebrity. Others act like I'm still a threat. No one sees me as a man trying to rebuild his life. Judge Caprio removes his glasses, a small gesture that signals this case reaches beyond ordinary legal limits. Mr. Williams, you said people deserve to know the truth about what the film portrays. What did you mean by that? Robert's reply reflects both regret for his past and frustration with how his story continues to define him. Your Honor, the film The Town turned bank robbery into something glamorous, almost heroic. It portrayed us as blue-collar rebels standing up to the system, but the truth is far from that. What we really did was terrify innocent people, traumatize bank tellers, and bring fear and violence into our own neighborhoods. And you believe the movie distorted the real story completely? Yes, Your Honor. Ben Affleck's character was made to look sympathetic, even noble at times. But the reality is that we were criminals who caused harm and earned the punishment we received. Hollywood romanticized something that ruined lives, ours included. The courtroom grows quiet as everyone takes in the rare moment. A man once convicted of serious crimes is standing here. His life turned into a Hollywood script, and now he's trying to rebuild himself while living with the weight of both. His past and the movie that reshaped. Judge Caprio takes his seat again, his expression thoughtful. It's clear this case touches something deeper than a simple traffic issue. Mr. Williams, how does all of this connect to the red light violation you're facing today? Robert takes a breath before answering. Your Honor, when Officer Kelly stopped me, I was driving home from a job interview. The company had Googled my name and found the articles linking me to the town. They told me they couldn't take the risk of hiring someone with that kind of history, even though I've stayed clean for 8 years, so you were distracted when you ran the red light. Judge Caprio leans back, visibly reflecting on the situation, one that challenges even his decades of courtroom experience. The courtroom is silent, everyone aware they're witnessing something rarely seen in municipal court. Mr. Williams, Judge Caprio begins, in my 47 years on this bench, I've never faced a case combining Hollywood fame, criminal rehabilitation, and traffic law. He glances at the documents before him. You've provided records that seem to confirm your connection to this town. Robert looks up, recognizing that the judge is treating his story with genuine seriousness rather than dismissing it as an excuse. Your Honor, Robert says, I realize this may sound like an attempt to dodge a ticket with a wild story, but I'm not. I just want to live quietly and honestly. This movie connection follows me everywhere, and it's making it nearly impossible to move forward. Judge Caprio rises, his tone steady but firm, an authority navigating unfamiliar legal and ethical ground. Mr. Williams, he says, let's address several matters. First, regarding your traffic violation, the evidence clearly shows you ran that red light regardless of what distracted you. Robert nods. I understand, Your Honor. I'm not trying to escape responsibility. Good, Caprio continues. But your case raises broader issues, ones that go far beyond this courtroom. You've served your sentence for serious federal crimes and seem to be making a sincere effort at rebuilding your life. Yet Hollywood's portrayal of your past continues to define how society sees you. The courtroom stirs as the judge's words touch on deeper themes: justice, media influence, and the struggle for redemption. Mr. Williams, Judge Caprio concludes, let me be clear. Nothing you've shared today excuses or diminishes the seriousness of your past crimes. Bank robberies harm innocent people and weaken communities. I understand that completely, Your Honor. I'm not here to justify my actions or seek sympathy. I earned my prison sentence, and I'm thankful no one was hurt during those crimes. Judge Caprio steps away from his bench, positioning himself to address not only the defendant, but also the larger principles behind the case. Our justice system is built on the belief that once individuals serve their sentences, they deserve the chance to rebuild their lives. If Hollywood's version of your crimes prevents that rehabilitation, then we're facing a deeper issue that extends beyond this courtroom. Robert's eyes reflect a glimmer of hope. Perhaps someone in authority finally understands the impossible situation he's been living in, Your Honor. I'm not asking for the movie to be changed or for any financial compensation. I just want people to know that the real story isn't nearly as glamorous as the film made it seem. Mr. Williams, you said employers turn you away because of the movie's portrayal, not your actual record. Is that correct? Exactly. My federal conviction is public record, and I'm always upfront about it. But when they connect me to that movie, they see a character, not a person who's served his time and changed. Judge Caprio returns to his bench, his tone now resolute. He's found a way to respond to an unprecedented situation. Mr. Williams, here's what I'm going to do. Your traffic fine will be reduced to $50, given the unusual circumstances that distracted you. Robert looks up, clearly moved by the fairness of the decision. But more importantly, I'm going to do something I've never done before. I'll use this courtroom as a platform to correct the public record about your case. The courtroom grows quiet, surprised by the judge's initiative. Mr. Williams, you served 15 years in federal prison for serious offenses. You've now been free for 8 years, have not reoffended, and are working, paying taxes, and contributing to your community. That's what true rehabilitation looks like. Robert's voice shakes with emotion. Thank you, Your Honor. Most people only see the movie, not the man who learned from his mistakes. That the issue is that Hollywood's portrayal of your story may be hindering society's responsibility to give rehabilitated individuals a fair chance to rebuild their lives. That's a deeper, systemic problem that goes far beyond a simple traffic violation. Robert Williams stands before Judge Frank Caprio, and for the first time since leaving federal prison, he's being recognized as a whole person, not just a former convict or a Hollywood subject. Your Honor, Robert begins, his voice steady despite years of frustration. I never thought someone in authority would actually listen to my full story and understand what I've gone through. Judge Caprio's expression reflects both satisfaction in handling a difficult case fairly and concern for the broader issues it highlights. Mr. Williams, he says, What you've described raises essential questions about rehabilitation, media influence, and the meaning of second chances. Our justice system can only work when people who have served their sentences are truly allowed to rebuild their lives. Robert nods, realizing that this discussion has moved far beyond his traffic citation. It's now about crime, punishment, and redemption. Your Honor, he continues, when I committed those robberies, I never thought about the tellers going home frightened, or how my actions affected the whole community. Prison gave me time to understand the real harm I caused. Judge Caprio leans forward, speaking with respect for Robert's apparent transformation. Mr. Williams, genuine remorse and rehabilitation deserve recognition. You've served your time, remained clean for 8 years, and are working hard to make a positive contribution to society. That's far more meaningful than any Hollywood version of your life. Gratitude fills Robert's eyes as he's seen, not for his past mistakes, but for his growth beyond them. I've spent so long just trying to survive after my release, he admits, that I forgot people might care about the truth behind that movie. The truth, Judge Caprio replies, is that you committed serious crimes, paid your debt, and genuinely changed. Hollywood's version might be more entertaining, but your real story, one of accountability and renewal, is what truly matters. Judge Caprio rises and extends his hand to Robert, not as a judge addressing a defendant, but as one person recognizing another's honest effort to rebuild his life. Mr. Williams, this courtroom acknowledges your commitment to turning your life around. If future employers or others judge you unfairly because of movie portrayals instead of your real progress, you have every right to challenge that bias. Robert shakes the judge's hand, and for the first time in years, his smile reflects real hope rather than defeat. Your Honor, you've given me back something I lost, a belief that people can look beyond my past mistakes and the film versions of them to see who I'm striving to be. This is what true justice represents: addressing past wrongs, recognizing sincere transformation, and supporting efforts to rebuild and contribute positively to society. As Robert prepares to leave, several people from the audience approach him, not as admirers of a movie, but as individuals inspired by his honesty and redemption. Judge Frank Caprio then turns to the courtroom, his message resonating far beyond those present. Ladies and gentlemen, what you've seen today illustrates why our justice system must always consider the complete human story, not just isolated crimes or Hollywood's dramatized depictions. The audience listens attentively, aware they've witnessed a rare and meaningful moment about how media, crime, and rehabilitation intersect. Mr. Williams once committed serious offenses that caused harm to innocent people and communities. He served his 15-year federal sentence but has since demonstrated 8 years of consistent rehabilitation. If you appreciate Judge Caprio's balanced and compassionate approach to real human challenges, hit the like button and share your thoughts on second chances and the media's role in shaping public perception. Before closing, Judge Caprio addresses the room one final time, ensuring his words are clear. Hollywood turned Mr. Williams's crimes into entertainment without recognizing how that portrayal could hinder his path toward genuine redemption. That raises important questions about media responsibility and the rights of those working to rebuild their lives. Judge Caprio gestures toward the spot where Robert had stood. When entertainment companies profit from real crimes, they have a duty to reflect on how their portrayals impact people who are trying to reintegrate into society after serving their sentences. The message here isn't limited to one man's unusual link to a major film. It's about whether we choose to be a society that encourages true rehabilitation or one that endlessly punishes individuals for their past mistakes. Judge Caprio speaks with the authority of someone who has spent decades balancing fairness with compassion. Mr. Williams should never be forced to choose between being honest about his past and having a chance to rebuild his future. Society benefits when those who've paid their dues can contribute positively, instead of being defined forever by their crimes or dramatized versions of their lives. His final remarks focus on hope and redemption. Today, he says, we've recognized both the seriousness of past actions and the sincerity of efforts to change. That's what real justice looks like, acknowledging the full complexity of human experience. As the session concludes, Robert Williams leaves not only with a reduced fine, but also with public recognition of his rehabilitation journey and the obstacles created by Hollywood's use of his story. Members of the gallery engage in thoughtful conversations about criminal justice, rehabilitation, and media responsibility, discussions that reach far beyond a single traffic case. Judge Caprio's approach in this rare situation shows what justice can achieve when it goes beyond violations and penalties to consider accountability, recovery, and the ongoing human effort to rebuild after serious mistakes. Robert Williams' story reminds us that truth is rarely as simple as entertainment makes it seem. Genuine rehabilitation deserves recognition, and those rebuilding their lives after serving their time face challenges that society must learn to understand and address with fairness. Judge Frank Caprio once again demonstrated that true justice means looking at the whole person, their past growth, and present circumstances, not just isolated incidents or dramatized versions of them. Here's a question worth asking. When someone has truly served their sentence and shown lasting change, do we help them rebuild, or do we let their past and its media portrayals define their future forever? Robert discovered that there are still leaders who recognize the difference between past mistakes and present effort, and who have the courage to acknowledge real rehabilitation, even under unusual circumstances. If this story made you reflect on second chances, rehabilitation, or how media shapes public perception, subscribe for more of Judge Caprio's insights and share your thoughts on how society should treat those striving to rebuild after serious mistakes. And the next time you watch a film based on a true story, remember Robert's journey. Behind those dramatized portrayals are real people still living with the consequences of both their choices and their fictional depictions.